In this list, we are counting down, according to us, the top 5 most ambitious warships ever made. If you disagree with the list, that's fine, we all live in democratic countries, but do let us know in the comments below. The ships in this list may not have been the most practical ships ever made, though in some cases they were. Whatever the case, they sure were ambitious for the time and for their builders. Officially known as the Nuestra Señora de la Santísima Trinidad, which means Our Lady of the Holy Trinity in English, it was launched on 3rd March 1769 from Havana, Cuba. Cuba at that time being a colony under the Spanish crown. Designed by Irish naval architect Matthew Mullen, it was first launched as a first-rate ship of the line with 3 decks and 116 guns. Being considerably larger in size than her counterparts HMS Victory and the French Bretagne, she was considered the largest ship of the line of her time. Though originally constructed as a 3-deck ship, her forecastle and quarterdeck was joined to create a 4th deck where a number of additional guns were placed, taking the number of guns carried by the ship to 140. Not only was she the first of the 3 4-deck ships of the line to be ever constructed, the other two being the USS Pennsylvania and the French Valamy, she was also the most armed ship of the line ever built. The Santísima Trinidad first saw action in the American War of Independence, where she served as the flagship of the Spanish fleet and saw action on the English Channel. In 1782, she again saw action in the Battle of Cape Spartel, where she served as the flagship of Admiral Luis de Cordova. In 1797, she was badly damaged and nearly captured at the Battle of Cape St. Vincent, where she was serving as the flagship of the fleet under Admiral José de Córdoba y Ramos, but was rescued by the Spanish 112-gun ship of the line Príncipe de Asturias. In 1805, she took part in the Battle of Trafalgar under the command of Rear Admiral Baltasar Hidalgo de Cisneros. During the battle, her great weight acted against her, making her helm unresponsive, while her great size made her an immediate target of the British ships and concentrated fire was poured into her. She eventually surrendered to the HMS Neptune. She was being towed back to Britain by the HMS Prince but was scuttled due to rough weather and the fear of Spanish crews revolting against their British captors. Though not the most effective ship of the line, she was definitely the largest and the most feared ship of the Spanish Armada. It was built in 1862 for the express purpose of giving the Confederate States an edge in naval prowess over the much larger and industrially capable Union Navy. Confederate Secretary of Navy Stephen R. Mallory rightly surmised that the Confederacy could not match the industrial North in numbers of ships at sea, so he set out to individually outclass the Union Navy in the quality of ships. Built in the captured Gosport Naval Yard by using the lower hull and the steam engines of the partially scuttled USS Merrimac, as no engines was available to the Confederate Navy at that time, it was a casemate design with armor up to 4 inches thick and a slopage that could easily bounce the shots coming from the Union Navy. She had an arms complement of 2 178mm Brooke rifles, 2 160mm Brooke rifles, 6 229mm Dahlgren smoothbores, and 2 12-pounder howitzers. The CSS Virginia is most famous for its action in the Battle of Hampton Roads. The Union Navy at that time was blocking the port of Norfolk as part of their larger blockade of the Confederate ports. The CSS Virginia, after completion, immediately steamed out into the Hampton Roads with the purpose of lifting this blockade. During the course of the battle on 8th March 1962, she rammed USS Cumberland, sinking her, and then proceeded to burn USS Congress with hot shots from her cannon, burning her down. The action of CSS Virginia on that day resulted in nearly 400 Union sailors dead while losing only 2. The following day, CSS Virginia was challenged by Union's own ironclad, the USS Monitor, and although the 178mm Brooke rifles on Virginia firing solid shot could penetrate 8 inches of armor plating, she was expected to fight wooden ships and only had the explosive shells equipped. Suffice to say, the outcome of the engagement between Virginia and Monitor was inconclusive. With the Union Army capturing the Gosport Naval Yard, now known as the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, the CSS Virginia was left without a home port. Judged not seaworthy enough to enter the Atlantic by her crew, she was eventually destroyed on orders of her captain. Although Virginia was not the first ironclad, that distinction goes to the French Gloire. She was the first ironclad used in active combat with deadly effect, in turn making the wooden ships obsolete and ushering in a new era of armored naval warfare. The Typhoon class, designated Project 941 Akula, was built by the Soviet Union with an intention of surpassing the SLBN armament of the Ohio-class submarines of the US Navy. Built by Schema with a beam measuring 24 meters and a submerged displacement of 48,000 long tons, the Typhoon class remains till date the biggest submerging vessel in the world. She was built to carry up to 20 R-39 Reef submarine-launched ballistic missiles, which had a significantly longer range than its American counterpart, the Trident I, at that time, but was also much larger and heavier, and so the submarine was designed accordingly. 7 Typhoon-class submarines were planned, 6 were completed with 1 remaining unfinished when the Soviet Union fell. The Typhoon class was notorious for its huge maintenance cost, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, the cash-strapped Russia gradually began to phase them out. 3 of the 6 Typhoon class was scrapped between 2006 to 2010 with United States financial assistance. The United States only too happy to help. Only 1 Typhoon class, the Dmitry Donskoy, remains in active service. Though never seeing active combat like most of its modern counterpart, it is still an object of fear and intrigue. Popularized by the movie The Hunt for Red October, an adaptation of Tom Clancy's novel by the same name, it remains till date the most recognizable submarine design of all time. Designed with the philosophy of quality over quantity, the Yamato-class battleships were the largest and most armed battleships to ever set sail. As Japan could not match the industrial output of America, they were specifically designed to counter the US Navy in the Pacific and engage multiple battleships simultaneously. 5 Yamato-class battleships were planned, with 2 being completed before the end of the war, the lead ship Yamato and her sister Musashi, while another ship of her class, the Shinano, was converted into a supporting aircraft carrier before the war ended. With a displacement of 72,000 long tons and carrying 18.1-inch guns, the largest to ever be fitted on a battleship, the Yamato-class battleships were very expensive to produce and maintain. The fuel consumption of these battleships were very high too, resulting in the Japanese not using these ships for smaller campaigns. Designed and produced with the belief of being unsinkable, the IJN Musashi was sunk in the Battle of the Sibuyan Sea with an estimated 19 torpedo and 17 bomb hits from carrier-based aircrafts. Although armed with 115 Type 96 25mm anti-aircraft guns, aircraft proved to be the chink in her armor, as these guns were ineffective at long range, highly inaccurate, had a slow traverse rate, and a low rate of fire. The IJN Yamato met a similar fate when in 1945 it was attacked by Task Force 58 in Operation Tengo, where her 162 anti-aircraft guns could shoot down only 8 aircraft. While the support carrier Shinano was sunk by the USS Archerfish, the most significant single submarine kill of World War II. The United States Naval Technical Mission to Japan in a post-war analysis found that the joint between the waterline armor belt on the upper hull and the anti-torpedo bulge on the underwater portion was poorly designed, a design flaw that was shared by the entire Yamato class. Despite its flaws, huge associated cost, and vulnerability to aircrafts, the Yamato class was the most ambitious project undertaken by the Imperial Japanese Navy and remained the biggest threat to the United States Pacific Surface Fleet until their elimination. If you are enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon. Named after the most decorated ship of World War II, the Yorktown-class USS Enterprise CV-6, she was the most ambitious project undertaken by the United States Navy at the time. The first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to be built, she was commissioned in 1961 with the aim of a supercarrier with unlimited range. With a displacement of 93,284 tons, she was the heaviest naval vessel ever built at the time of her commissioning, and till date remains the longest naval vessel built, measuring 1,123 feet. 6 Enterprise-class carriers were planned, but only one was actually built. Housing 8 Westinghouse A2W nuclear reactors, she could reach speeds of up to 33 knots, which was faster than her successors, the Nimitz and the Gerald R. Ford class supercarriers. But at the same time, it resulted in massive building and operating costs, which influenced the government's decision on cancelling the other 5 ships of her class. She could carry 90 aircrafts of various assortment at a time. The sensors, the sonar, the radar, everything carried by the USS Enterprise was state of the art and way ahead of her time. Her first major deployment came during the Cuban Missile Crisis when she was deployed in the Atlantic as part of Task Force 135. In her third deployment, she was part of Operation Sea Orbit, which was also the first nuclear-powered task force. She saw major action in Vietnam and the Middle East and was deployed around the globe in various roles. Her list of achievements is too long and we will need a separate video for it. She caught fire in 1969 when ammunition of an F-4 Phantom exploded on a flight deck. It resulted in the death of 27 sailors with 314 being injured. Today, this moment is remembered among her former crew as the worst tragedy as well as their finest hour, as the crew fought bravely to combat the fire and save the ship. At the time of her decommission in 2017, she was the oldest active combat ship of the United States Navy. In popular culture, she directly influenced the naming of the starship Enterprise. She had 4 mottos: "We are legend," "Ready on arrival," "The first, the finest," "8 reactors, none faster," and we couldn't disagree with any of them.